So one thing I hear a lot from some of my students is that if they're coming from a rock blues background, they're very comfortable with minor pentatonics, but they have trouble making that transition over into playing jazz language. So in this lesson, we're going to address that problem. And the goal here is to teach you 8 different ways, 8 different chromatic approaches that we can use and then apply on an F blues. And I'm going to show you first the chromatic approaches, then I'm going to show you some ways of practicing that to start to learn them. There is a free PDF for this that has sort of the sample version. The full length PDF will be for the members of my guitar community upcoming. If you're interested in that, you can check the description below for more information and to get on the waiting list. Anyways, we're going to go through chromatic approaches, some ways of practicing it, and then I will demonstrate some of those chromatic approaches over an F blues 1 chorus solo. There'll be a couple more choruses of solos again for the jazz guitar community. So let's stick around for that, and I'm sure you guys will get a lot of use out of this. So let's get into it. In the last few lessons, if you haven't checked them out, definitely worth watching to get some of the fuller context. I'm not going to go through everything right now, but I'll just quickly mention what we're dealing with here is 3-note chromatic approaches, and we're going to apply these over the chord tones for the chords in an F blues. For this, we're just going to look at F7. The rest of the chords are going to be dealt with in other PDFs. So in F7, we're going to do this around the 5th position right here. I'm looking at this like F13 type voicing, or you could play like F9 here if that's what's comfortable for you. So we're going to look at the root, the 3rd, the 5th, and the flat 7. So F, A, C, and E flat. For each of those notes, we're going to have a chromatic ascending approach and a chromatic descending approach. So first let's do the ascending approaches, and then we'll do the 4 descending. You guys can practice in your own time, but I'll just work through them for you. So the first one we have for ascending, we're going to target this F, and we start on the E flat, starting on the upbeat. All of these approaches start on the and of 1, the upbeat, so we would count 3, 4, 1. And that lets our chord tone fall on the downbeat. And there's many variations of this, but just to keep it simple for all of these approaches. So 1. For the next one, we're targeting this 3rd, A, and then we have 1. And then we're targeting this C, and then we have this. And then for the last one, we're targeting the 7th, this E flat, and we have 3, 4, 1. Again, you could keep doing that, but for right now, those are the ones we have. Okay, for the descending, let's take a look at those. The first one we're going to do this kind of in reverse order. We'll target that flat 7, E flat. We have. Then we're going to target the C. And then we're going to target the A. And then lastly, we're going to target that F again. So one way I like to connect these is starting with the low note F, and we go through each of the ascending approaches, and then we'll have a line that goes through each of the descending approaches consecutively. We have to make one adjustment to do that, and I'll point out where that is. So starting off, we have right here, we're going to add in E flat instead of starting back in on A. Since our next chromatic approach also starts on A, we would have a duplicate note. So instead of doubling up the note, we're just going to make that first note of that approach in E flat. It gives us somewhere to go. So we have E flat, and then so that's for our ascending. That's one quick way with a single line that we can condense all this information of all 4 chromatic approaches. We can do the same thing with the descending, and that would sound like this. Right here we go up to an E flat instead of back down to E flat. So those connect all of our chromatic approaches together. Again, you would do this also over the other dominant chords in the blues, starting with next B flat 7, the 4 chord, and then C7. You could also do it over D7, that 6th chord, if you're playing this like a jazz blues. Now let's take a look at the solo chorus that demonstrates this. And we're going to be applying a few of these chromatic approaches. Try and see if you can hear them before checking them out in the PDF. We really want to get the sound of these approaches in our playing and in our ear so that it will come out more naturally. So listen for those times, even if you don't know exactly what chromatic approach I'm using, try and pick out with your ear when you're hearing it happening. All right, so I'm going to play this. I'll play it at 2 different tempos. First, I'll play it at 250, and then we'll play it at a slower tempo that you guys can maybe practice to and come back to in this video. Once you've practiced the solo, you can watch this back and play along with me. All right. Okay, so there's a few important things I want to point out here, and they concern a lot with the picking. And the first one is, let's say we're targeting our 5th on F7, so C. And then we want to continue it. One way of doing that is going down to B flat and then continuing to the 3rd, so descending from there. All of that I would play on the same string, starting with the down pick. And you can either slide that last one depending on the articulation you want, or you can continue doing alternate picking and you'll end up with an upstroke. And then that same type of pattern applies, but targeting the root and then it's going to the flat 7. So that would sound like this one. For those ones, I'm thinking of this C, the A, the F, and the E flat. And you'd have. So you're hearing that kind of language within this solo etude, let's call it. So on that B flat 7, on our 4 chord, we have another section where we're again targeting the 5th. And this is in a slightly higher position than what we just worked on. So you'll get some practice in both sort of the 5th position area and a little bit higher. You can apply it in both. Beyond that, we also have one targeting on the D7. I am doing a similar type of approach to the 5th for D7. And then kind of doing a melodic minor type of thing. One thing I'd really recommend, if this is at your skill level, is to write out your own solo over the blues using some of these approaches, and maybe just focus on one of them and try and implement it as best as you can. Even if it's just a couple bars, figuring out a line, a lick that you like that uses one of these chromatic approaches, and then starting to really apply it. Even if it's the same thing, applied to every one of the chords. You just keep applying it, moving it around. That's going to be huge for your help, more so than what I can do for you by providing you with the free PDF. You writing and composing your own version of that, of something that's at your level, will be much more beneficial. I can't do that for you. You have to figure out where that is for your level. And if it's not notated out, that's fine. If you just want to be able to play it, that's cool too. Hopefully that makes sense and helps you guys break out of some of that minor pentatonic box and really start to see the chord tones. We want to start to visualize on any chord we're playing over, in this case F7, we want to be able to visualize all those chord tones on the fretboard really easily. They sort of like light up in my awareness when I'm looking at the fretboard. And then one way of doing that, instead of just playing the exact note we're visualizing, is being able to have some approaches, some ways of playing around that note. So let me know in the comments if you guys found this helpful. This one did win the poll that we had on our community tab, but next week we will probably do one on pentatonics because I have a lot of cool things to talk about there. So in this lesson I'm trashing minor pentatonics, but in the next one we're going to focus on that, and I'll show you guys some really cool things you can do with that. You guys will want to check out this lesson next. I know most of you haven't because the views, it's one of my first lessons, but I'm pretty proud of it. It's a video on comping over an F blues in some really cool ways. The PDF that's associated with it, I believe, is free, so you can check that out right here. And I'll see you guys in the next lesson. Thanks. Close enough. All right. And on that note, I'll see you guys next week. I was going to say tomorrow. Maybe I will see you tomorrow. If you guys want to tune in tomorrow and watch one of my videos, I won't stop you. But have a great week.